Hello everyone, this is Anton Vasilenko, CEO and co-founder of the international network True Gamers. If you're here, it means you definitely know what esports or gaming is. This is not just an industry, it's a new system for the digital world. That's why at True Gamers we bring together physical clubs, digital services, computing power, and educational infrastructure into a single hybrid platform. We don't just scale up. We research each country, test, design, and only then do we enter the market. We study everything from player behavior and technical limitations to taxes, media culture, and even school cyber leagues. And only when we understand what makes the market unique do we offer a model that can scale without a high risk of falling apart. Today I want to share the research conducted by the True Gamers team on the US market. Why is America our strategic focus? Why is this market number one for gaming but not for everyone? And why do those who try to enter it by following a template burn out almost immediately? Let's start with the US economy. America is not just a market with a high average check. It's a platform where you can build business models for 5, 10, 15 or even 20 years. Let's look at the facts. In 2023, the US GDP exceeded $27 trillion. That's almost 25% of the entire global economy. This single market is larger than most continents. The GDP per capita is about $75,000. This is also one of the highest figures in the world, which directly affects the purchasing power of the audience. In 2022, inflation in the US reached a 40-year high of 9.1%. It was a shock. Real incomes were falling, logistics were collapsing, and consumption was slowing down. But the Federal Reserve implemented a tight monetary policy, raised interest rates, reduced liquidity, and regulated demand. As a result, in 2024, inflation dropped to 2.9%. This level makes it possible to plan, invest, and manage pricing. This is very stable inflation. For us as a business, this means predictable resource costs. We understand how much rent, logistics, salaries, and equipment will cost. And most importantly, we know when we will break even, which means we can design products 3 to 5 years ahead without having to recalculate unit economics every quarter. Next, household income plays a key role. It's important not only how much people earn, but how much they can actually spend. In 2023, real incomes grew by 4.2%. In other words, wage growth outpaced inflation. For us, this means one thing: solvent demand has recovered. We are once again working with an audience that has a budget for entertainment, subscriptions, tickets, in-game purchases, and finally, equipment. The unemployment rate also makes the US attractive for entry. The unemployment rate remains at around 3.5 to 3.7%. This is the lowest it has been in the past 50 years. What does this mean? People have jobs, which means they have income. Companies are steadily hiring, which means the economy is not in stagnation. The level of anxiety and uncertainty is lower, and accordingly, consumers behave more confidently. Some entrepreneurs, despite this, are put off by taxes in the US. But this too requires a closer look. In the US, the federal corporate tax rate is 21%. In addition, each state adds its own tax, which ranges from 0 to 9%. On average, the total tax burden comes out to about 25 or 26%, which is roughly the same as in France, Germany, and even in the EU if you take hidden fees into account. However, there are two key differences. First, there is no VAT in the US. Instead, a sales tax is applied, which depends on the state, making calculations simpler, especially for digital products and franchises. Second, the tax system in the US is designed to support business growth. There are deductions here for research and development, depreciation, marketing, sponsorship, and licensing. In the US, taxes don't hinder business development. On the contrary, they become part of its growth if you know how to use them properly. Why is all this important for gaming and for the company True Gamers? First, currency predictability. The dollar is not just a unit of account, it's a global asset. We can attract investments, hedge risks, and scale up without the fluctuations that exist in emerging markets. Second, there is a strong consumer base, high GDP per capita, plus growing real incomes. This is an audience ready to pay for quality entertainment. In the US, entertainment is a necessity, not a luxury. And games are at the top of these forms of entertainment. Third, regulatory stability, clear labor laws, transparent investment mechanisms, and the ability to operate in any jurisdiction, from a startup in Delaware to a full-fledged holding company with global reporting. Fourth, support for technology and venture capital. 80% of global venture capital still flows through the States. Here, you can not only sell your product, but also raise funds for infrastructure if you know how to build it properly. That's why we're entering the market as next-generation digital infrastructure, capable of operating over the long term and creating multi-layered value, from clubs and arenas to data centers and content. But before entering any country, we don't look at subscription numbers. We look at people at demographics because gaming is about the behavior and biorhythm of an entire nation. America isn't just a big country. It's 340 million people spread across 4 regions, each with different growth rates, levels of urbanization, digital maturity, and consumer patterns. The fastest growing area is the South, Texas, Florida, North Carolina. Here, we're seeing a population increase. This region has a young demographic structure and positive migration. The West, on the other hand, is highly urbanized and expensive, but technologically advanced. It's home to the largest game studios and cyber community. The Midwest is more spread out, with a strong student environment, universities, and colleges. Their local tournaments and grassroots communities are particularly strong. The Northeast, New York, Boston, Philadelphia, has mature infrastructure, a high concentration of wealth, and a large number of universities and media outlets. But the main strength of the US lies in its generational makeup. It is this that shapes the long-term attention economy. In 2024, Generation Alpha accounts for about 73 million people. These are children under 14 who were born with Roblox in their hands. Their world is digital content. They are not just in the future, they are already inside gaming ecosystems right now. Generation Z is the main core of gaming and eSports. According to forecasts, 70% of them will be gamers by 2027. This is a generation that grew up on streaming, YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok. For them, there is no separation between gaming and life. Millennials. These are now people between 28 and 44 years old. They are the first wave of mature gamers. They have money, children, and a habit of playing. They make up 49% of the entire adult gamer base in the US. Generation X and Boomers are less directly involved in esports or gaming, but they also play. And importantly, they control the income that finances their children's subscriptions or donations. The average age is 38 years old. This means that in the US, the market is mature but not aging. They live both those who already play and those who are just starting out. Another important point is gender. 45% of gamers in the US are women, and the share of women over 35 in the mobile and casual segment is one of the fastest growing. And that's remarkable. This means that any product designed solely as a male domain is losing half the market. Now, about the structure of consumption. More than 61% of the entire US population play games at least once a week, and 55% play online with others, friends or children. 83% of parents play together with their children, so gaming is already a format for socialization, not just an individual escape. Moreover, it has already become part of family leisure time. For true gamers, this means creating a space that is comfortable for both teenagers and adults with children, designing communities and mechanics that include parents, children, and friends, and working with cities and schools. Because engagement is not just about the screen, but about the environment. Another important factor is urbanization and digital inequality. 83% of Americans live in cities, but about 15% of rural areas still have problems with broadband internet access. This means that access to gaming and infrastructure is uneven, and we must take this into account when designing everything from server distribution to the geography of future locations. In any case, the demographics of the United States show us one thing. This market is already ready. It has the numbers, the engagement, the gaming culture, and the financial resources. This means we can enter the market with an understanding of who lives there, how they play, who they play with, and why. Next, let's figure out what's happening with education in the country and what gaming has to do with it. When most companies look at the gaming market, they only analyze the surface, how many players there are, how many viewers, how much these viewers and players pay. At True Gamers, we take a different approach. We are interested not just in the audience, but in the system that reproduces this audience. Who is preparing the next champion? Who provides them with a platform, a coach, streaming tools, a community where they can grow, where they learn that gaming can be a profession and even a real sporting achievement or career. This is what we call the pipeline, an educational, media and cultural chain that continuously generates players, creators and the team around them. And in the United States, this chain has already been established. Since 2018, the National Federation of State High School Associations has officially recognized eSports. As of 2023, 8,600 American schools have their own eSports teams. Just think about that number. This is almost half of all secondary schools in the country. For comparison, football is played in about 14,000 schools. School leagues are organized by region, follow a set schedule, have training programs, coaches, and supervisors. They are integrated into the curriculum, and importantly, teachers, principals, and parents support this. So what do we see? Children become engaged, motivated, and develop real soft skills. Strategy, teamwork, responsibility. They build up their psychological resilience, and parents do not stand in the way of this. Universities in the education system are also involved. More than 270 universities and colleges in the US have official esports teams. They receive scholarships, train in specially built facilities, and participate in national tournaments. Universities are building arenas, hiring coaches, sports psychologists, nutritionists, and even analysts. True gamers can integrate into this system as a sponsor, as an organizer, as a technology partner, as a local hub for practice and growth, and as the main social gaming hub. Next, digital infrastructure. The ability to build an ecosystem is not about renting a venue. It's about stable internet, high speed, a habit of being online, a developed payment system, robust digital content logistics, and most importantly, the audience's readiness to embrace technology as a normal part of life. In this sense, the USA is one of the most mature and prepared markets in the world. That's why almost the entire country is online. The level of internet access is higher than in any other country with a comparable population. The average mobile internet speed in the US is 123 megabits per second. The average speed of fixed home internet is 262 megabits per second. In the best cities and new districts, there is a widespread shift to gigabit connections via fiber optics. And that means you can download more than 100 gigabytes in 10 to 15 minutes, stream tournaments in 4K without buffering, launch cloud games and assistance in real time, and build a digital ecosystem that isn't limited by hardware or bandwidth. Furthermore, in the US, there are more than 200 million 5G network subscribers. All major carriers have 5G coverage across the entire country. The average 5G speed in the US is over 150 megabits per second. By 2026, 5G will cover 98 cities and suburbs. For gamers, this means you can run cloud gaming, streaming, and mobile interfaces without lag, set up mobile studios, pop-up events, work with augmented reality, and even operate in places where fixed infrastructure was previously lacking, for example on campuses or at music festivals. The US is a leader in cloud computing and distributed architecture. Riot Games keeps its central servers in Chicago. Epic Games has its own nodes on the coasts. All three major cloud providers, ABC, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure, have data centers on both coasts and in the central region. This is important because it allows us to guarantee competitive game quality, host AI, rendering, and streaming within the US without having to send traffic overseas. We can run the True Gamers platform as a cloud-based structure with access and control from anywhere in the country. People in the US have the necessary devices. 98% of Americans have a mobile phone, and 95% have at least one device with a screen, a laptop, tablet, or desktop. 60%, just think about that, own consoles like Xbox, PlayStation, or Switch, and 75% have a smart TV or a connected television. For true gamers, this presents a clear task: to build products that are cross-platform, flexible, and not tied to a single channel. It is precisely in the US that it is truly possible to build a system where customers play, watch, pay, learn, and create content within a single digital environment. Now let's move on to the culture of consumption in America, and specifically the culture of gaming consumption. In any country, gaming or esports can be a show. In the US, it has become an entire industry. When you look at the numbers, you realize that America doesn't just consume esports, it designs, exports, and institutionalizes it. The US is the largest sports market in the world. In 2020, the revenue of the American esports market amounted to $870 million. That's almost 30% of the entire global industry. The forecast for 2030 is to reach almost $2 billion, with an average growth rate of over 10%. Calculated per active viewer, this is the most monetizable market in the world. Here, the average spend is higher, churn is lower, engagement is greater, and the response to the product is stronger. In terms of audience, like national leagues, in 2020, more than 45 million Americans watched esports. This is comparable to the regular audience of the NBA and higher than that of the NHL. And most importantly, this is a young, digital, and solvent audience of the future, aged 18 to 34. An American no longer asks what esports or gaming is. They ask where to watch, who is playing, or what to use to build their own setup. That's why the USA is a country where esports and gaming fill stadiums and generate an event-driven economy. The Fortnite World Cup in New York had a prize pool of $30 million. 18,000 tickets were sold for League of Legends at the Staples Center. Up to 10,000 participants from 60 countries gathered at the Evolution Championship in Las Vegas. Those are colossal numbers, I must say. And these aren't one-off events. Many cities see esports as a source of revenue, traffic, and investment appeal, integrating it into their tourism development and youth policy programs. And where there's esports, there's also gaming. And of course, media streaming platforms frequently use esports as highly engaging content. In the United States, Twitch is the primary market, with more than 35 million monthly users also active on platforms such as YouTube Gaming, TikTok, and Discord. Hundreds of thousands of content creators are involved in esports and gaming. Amazon and Google are investing in streaming, exclusive rights, and production. That means any tournament is not just a match, but a media product, and every player is a potential influencer, creator, and showcase for the platform. And of course, its users as well. That's why brands like Nike, Adidas, Coca-Cola, State Farm, Comcast, DC Comics, T-Mobile, Red Bull, BMW, and many others have already entered the industry. You're not just working with the player, you're working with the brand, the city, the platform, the hardware manufacturer, the university, the team, and the league. America isn't just an interesting market for us, it's the center of gravity for the entire industry. If Asia produces players and Europe produces indie developers, then the US builds the infrastructure, media, and capitalization. And even more than that, the US is the leader in both the number and quality of specialized esports arenas in the world. Esports Stadium Ellington in Texas is a 100,000 square foot facility built in partnership with the city, one of the largest in North America. The HyperX Arena in Las Vegas is used for streaming shows, matches, and conferences. Nerd Street Gamers, situated at the Block in Philadelphia, is widely recognized as an important incubator, a dedicated training base, and a highly versatile event venue. Many major NBA arenas, including the iconic Madison Square Garden, Crypto.com Arena, and Barclays Center, are regularly adapted for large-scale esports events. This means that esports truly has a significant and growing physical presence. Where there is esports, there is also gaming. It's not in basements. It's on main streets, on billboards, in arena schedules. It's in this city's news. Many cities in the US officially work with esports as a growth point for their branding. Philadelphia allocated land for the Fusion Arena, the country's first specialized arena for a single team. At the moment, it's on hold, but the efforts are already telling. New York hosts the largest international events from ESL One for CSGO and the Fortnite World Cup. Los Angeles is home to dozens of teams, production houses, and the offices of Riot and Activision Blizzard. This is where the League of Legends Championship, LCC, CDL, and show matches take place. For us, this means that entering the US is not just about choosing where to open a club. It's a strategic choice of which city you will share this agenda with. Because in the US, esports is already a part of a huge number of people's lives. Even the government and legitimate capital support esports. The city of Arlington invested $10 million in transforming conference centers and an esports arena. The federal law, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, was passed, which includes support for digital spaces. Local initiatives fund university clubs, youth programs, and community centers. So, we are not entering as tenants, but as an infrastructure partner. For others, it can serve as a training base for the college league, a community hub next to the arena, a studio for content from the local team, a starting point for teenagers from the school league, or a space for soft power branding from sponsors to influencers. We are ready to be the point of integration between culture, infrastructure, and business. And in the US, this is exactly what holds the greatest value. If you are an entrepreneur, an investor, or maybe you are just about to start your first business, we are open to partnership through franchising. We have the data, we have the team, we have the strategy, and we have the platform. And most importantly, we understand why we are entering the US market and how promising this market is. All important links are below this video. We are attaching the entire research here as well. So, see you soon. We look forward to hearing from you.